Hey there, and welcome to this explainer. If you've ever just stared at a wall of code, kind of scratching your head wondering how styles magically apply to some parts of a web page but completely ignore others, well, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're demystifying CSS selectors.
Imagine you have a classroom of 50 students and want to give instructions to specific students. How would you identify them? By their name, group, class, or position? CSS selectors work the exact same way. They help us target specific HTML elements and apply styles exactly where we want without messing up the rest of the page.
You can also think of CSS selectors almost like addresses on a parcel. If you write this beautifully crafted letter, which in our world is your CSS styling, things like colors and fonts, but you forget to put the actual delivery address on the envelope, the Postal Service has literally no idea where to take it. Without selectors serving as that delivery address, CSS wouldn't know where to apply your styles. Okay, really quickly, here is our roadmap for today. Introduction to CSS selectors, simple and group selectors, targeting HTML family relationships, using the attribute selector, comparisons and common mistakes, and we'll wrap up with a practice challenge and recap.
Section 1, Introduction to CSS Selectors. The why behind the code.
So here's the thing. Selectors tell CSS which HTML elements should be styled. They are the absolute essential connection between your markup and your design. Learning all that cool CSS syntax like gradients or drop shadows means absolutely nothing if you can't accurately pinpoint the specific elements you actually want to change.
Section 2. Simple and group selectors, the foundation of styling.
All right, let's look at the element selector. Take a second and look at the code here. We just have a P in our CSS. Before I give it away, predict which element turns blue. Got your guess? Yep. It targets all paragraph tags. Every single paragraph on that page becomes blue. It's a super broad brush, perfect for baseline styles. Now let's step it up with the class selector. Notice the little dot right before the word highlight in the CSS? That dot is basically magic. It acts like an exclusive club membership. Any HTML element that has the class highlight gets to join the club and instantly turns red. And the best part, one single class can style many completely different elements. Which brings up a really good question. What selector would you use if multiple elements need the exact same style? Let's say you have a button design you want to reuse. Should we use a class or an ID for reusable styling? Think about that for a second. Well, if you guessed class for reusable elements, you completely nailed it. And that's because the ID selector, which you can spot by that hashtag, is uniquely strict. Going back to our classroom, it's like a student's unique ID number. An ID must only be used once per page. It is strictly for styling one specific element. So remember, hashtag for ID, dot for class. To round out our simple tools, we have two massive time savers. The universal selector, that little asterisk symbol, literally selects every single element on the page. It's super popular for setting up CSS resets. And then there's the group selector. By just using a comma, you can style multiple elements at once, like your H1, H2, and P tags, which saves you a ton of time and seriously reduces repetition. Moving right along to Section 3, targeting HTML family relationships, navigating the DOM tree. Check out the descendant selector. We use a simple space between div and P. Okay, predict which paragraph turns red here. Exactly. It only selects paragraphs inside the div. It completely ignores the paragraph outside. That space basically tells CSS, hey, find me a paragraph, but only if it's living somewhere inside a div. But here is a tricky scenario. What if you have a huge, deeply nested family tree? Which selector targets only the direct children without accidentally styling the grandkids? For that, we use the child selector, which uses the greater than symbol. It strictly selects only direct children. So here, the direct child paragraph turns blue, but it totally ignores the deeper nested elements, like that paragraph hiding inside the section. It's awesome for keeping your styles contained. Next up, the adjacent sibling selector. This one uses a plus sign. Imagine students waiting in a single file line. This selector targets only the very first paragraph standing immediately next to the H1 heading. That first paragraph turns red, but the second one totally ignored because it's not adjacent. On the flip side, the general sibling selector uses a tilde. This selects all sibling paragraphs that come after the H1. Using our line analogy, this is like giving an instruction to everyone standing behind the line leader. They all turn green. Section 4. Using the attribute selector, highly specific targeting. If classes are like naming students, the attribute selector is like delivering a parcel to a very specific subdepartment. Take a guess which input gets a blue border here. Because we use square brackets and said type equals text, it targets that element perfectly and ignores the password input. It is ridiculously useful when you're styling complex forms.
All right, section 5, comparisons and common mistakes. Keeping your code clean, because knowing the pitfalls is just as important as knowing the syntax.
Here's a super handy comparison of the symbols we've covered. Element uses just the tag, class uses a dot, ID uses a hash, universal is an asterisk, and group is a comma. For relationships, descendant is a space, child is greater than, adjacent sibling is a plus, general sibling is a tilde, and attribute uses square brackets. You'll definitely want to screenshot this cheat sheet.
Now, let's talk about common beginner mistakes so you can avoid them. Number 1, forgetting the dot for classes or the hash for IDs. If you forget them, CSS gets totally confused. Also, confusing the descendant space with the child greater than symbol happens all the time. And please don't overuse IDs instead of reusable classes. Picking the wrong selector just makes your code way harder to maintain.
Finally, section 6, practice challenge and recap. Test your knowledge.
Okay, here's your challenge. Try creating a web page with one ID heading, 3 paragraphs with the same class, a nested div structure, and 2 input fields. Then practice styling them using the element, class, ID, child, and attribute selectors we just covered. Now that you've learned how to target HTML elements using CSS selectors, in the next lesson we'll learn about CSS colors, backgrounds, and units to make our web pages more visually appealing. Until then, ask yourself, if you could style the entire web with just one perfect CSS selector, how clean could your code truly be? Catch you in the next explainer.